Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome onto this Overcome webinar. It's my pleasure to host you and to be with you this morning on this webinar. Alhamdulillah, this webinar has been organized by IERA, the Islamic Education and Research Academy, and I'm your host, Steve. I work for IERA, and I'm in charge of the New Muslim department. So Alhamdulillah, you're joining us today for this series of webinar, which is called Overcome. And the whole concept of this series is to discuss together the common issues or challenges that you may face in your life, in your everyday life as a new Muslim. And in this series of webinar, we're covering every month a new topic to discuss and address some of those issues. And this month, well, alhamdulillah, we covering the topic of Ramadan, with the title for this webinar being Ramadan Time to Make New Habits. So alhamdulillah, today, you might have been in a situation where you've been thinking for yourself, maybe that's your first Ramadan, and you're not really too sure about how the fasting is going to go. You know that it's long days, long hours, and you're just wondering, okay, is it going to be difficult? How am I going to be able to do it? Or you might have been fasting for a few times, and sometimes you might have experienced loneliness, breaking the fast on your own, not necessarily fully experiencing or enjoying the months of Ramadan. Or you might have been facing other challenges. You might think, okay, but my family is not Muslim. They don't necessarily know that I became Muslim. At work, they don't know as well that I'm Muslim, and sometimes it's difficult to avoid the situation where people have to find out that you became Muslim. So you might have had all those questions and that have been in your mind. So that's the topic that we wanted to discuss and address this question of Ramadan, and really what is the meaning of Ramadan and how to take the best of it. So alhamdulillah, that's the topic we'll be discussing, and alhamdulillah, we have the pleasure and the honor to have with us this month as our guest speaker for this webinar, Yawar Baig. Yawar Baig is an international speaker, life coach, and corporate consultant. He's been mainly focusing on the question of leadership and how to mentor leaders and how to prepare leaders in today's world, so that the Muslim can really go back to the heritage and the teaching and the treasure that we have in Islam, and be able to make the most of it in today's society. So Yawar received his Islamic education in Hyderabad in India, and as well in Saudi and in America. Yawar is an international speaker and always addressed the question of Muslim becoming standard bearers of Islam, to showcase Islam to the world today. And he's the founder of the Standard Bearers Academy. So he's with us today, and inshallah, without any further ado, I'll hand over to Yawar so that we can enjoy from his advice and his insight on the topic, inshallah. So Shir, I've opened the mic for you, inshallah. It's for you to start, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Bismillah, Shir, you can start whenever you're ready, inshallah. Shir Yawar. Assalamu alaikum, Shir. Shir Yawar, your mic is open. We're ready to start, inshallah. Okay. Okay. Apologize, everyone. We'll take just a few minutes before we start, inshallah. Just give us a few minutes, inshallah, and we'll be started with share, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, we start in the month of Ramadan, and I hope that that obviously all of you are excited about this start and this new beginning. And inshallah, we hope that during this webinar we'll be giving you a few advice, inshallah, that would be beneficial. As well, I'll start with doing some few announcements as well. Yes, one thing as well about this format of this webinar. The webinar is about an hour and a half, and we'll start with about 45 minutes discussion with Sheikh Yawar, inshallah. And after that, the webinar will be open to question and answers, because I know that most probably all of you have a lot of questions about Ramadan if it's the first time you're going through it. So inshallah we'll take time, we'll have about half an hour to 45 minutes of question and answers, so that you'll have the opportunity to ask all the questions you may have on the topic, inshallah. And just before we start, let me take the time as well to introduce some of the other activities. I'll introduce them now as we have some time before start. We have, during the month of Ramadan, Muslim Now will be organizing a few different activities as well to help you along during that month. One of them, I will mention it again at the end of this webinar, but one of them being a weekly webinar that we will have on the topic of Ramadan. I'll mention that to you at the end in more details, but all of the IARA speakers will be available and make themselves available during the month, so that we can spend the month together discussing the topic of Ramadan. And there will be a few more activities as well that will take place as well, and all of that, inshallah ta'ala, will take place during this month of Ramadan, inshallah. Okay. So inshallah, before we start, if you have any important and pressing question about Ramadan that you want to be addressed in this webinar, any specific challenges that you're facing, any questions that are important to you for this Ramadan, you can start sending them now. We'll address them at the end of the webinar, of course, but you can start getting familiar with the system. On the right hand side, you have your right. You have the panel for the webinar system, and you can send your questions in the question box. You have a section called "Question to the Staff." That's where you're sending your question, inshallah. Okay, I think that we're ready, inshallah, Sheikh. If you're ready, we can start, inshallah. Yeah, your mic is open, inshallah. You can start, inshallah, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to all of you. I'm Yawar Baig, and I'm speaking to you now from Kuwait. I am Indian, as you can see from my South California accent. And if you don't understand anything that I say, anything in my pronunciation and so on and so forth, then if you ask me nicely, I will respond quite properly to that. So, Jazakumullah khairan for being here. It's a very hot, bright morning here in Kuwait. It is the temperature is about 49 degrees Celsius, and we started fasting this morning at about 2:30 a.m. and we will inshallah break the fast at about 7 p.m. or 7:15 p.m. Today. So that's the number of hours, and of course the sun, but it is a very, very hot. Now the issue of Ramadan and why Ramadan and what to do with Ramadan. Ramadan to me is an expression of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, if someone asks me why Ramadan, why must I fast and why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring Ramadan? It is an expression of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Ramadan, if you look at it, in a manner of speaking, is the most illogical thing on the face of the earth, because all the things which are permissible voluntarily, we make them impermissible during the daylight hours. And the question, simple question to ask is why? So that's, we'll deal with that question. I don't intend to leave you there with that question, but I think it's a point to begin and ask that, why must I do something which within quotes really doesn't make sense? I mean, if I leave, stop eating, stop drinking, so what? How does it benefit anyone? And of course, nothing benefits or harms Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that's even less reason to do it. Look at it in that way. Also, this is the kind of question that that many of you might face from use one of my favorite phrases of my dear friend Sheikh Hussein. He calls people who are not Muslim, he says, not yet Muslim. He says, don't call them non-Muslims, say not yet Muslim. So if the not yet Muslims ask you, why do you fast? It doesn't make any logical sense. The thing to say is that love doesn't make logical sense. Ask somebody who has been in love, the kinds of things people do when they are in love and with the people they love, they're really quite silly if you think about it. But the whole point of that is that when you are in love, it doesn't seem silly at all. It's something which is extremely logical, provided you see it through the lens of love. And who is more deserving and who is more worthy of our love than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Jalla Jalaluhu, the one who created us, the glorious, the magnificent, the one who gave us everything we have without asking. Most importantly, who opened our eyes to Himself, opened our eyes to His greatness and majesty and glory, and who enabled us to recognize Him and to worship Him as it is His right to be recognized and worshipped. And therefore, we obey Him, not because the order necessarily makes sense in our way of thinking, but because He said it. You do it because He said it. That's it. You do it because He said it. Why? Because He said it. And that's the whole beauty of Ramadan. It's an expression of our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the glorious and the magnificent, in Surah Al-Imran, He said something which is one of the ayat which is recited in Jumu'ah. And you will probably hear this ayat being recited in almost any Jumu'ah that you go to in any part of the world. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. He said, O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He should, as He deserves that you should have His taqwa. And do not die in a state of Islam as Muslims with complete submission to Allah. Now when you read this ayah, it is the ayah of Surah Al-Imran, the third surah in the Quran, and it's ayah number 102. You will find the translation not as I give it to you just now, but as following, which is, O you who believe, fear Allah as He who should be feared, and die not except in a state of Islam, with complete submission to Allah. Now, a couple of things I want to say here. One is that, as we are aware, this form of address, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, wherever it comes in the Quran, this is a form of address which is a hukum, which is an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly to the believers. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ittaqullah, O you believe, have taqwa of Allah, this is a direct order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we as Muslims, we accept it as a direct order and we obey it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala therefore says to us to have His taqwa, and as I told you in the translations, the way it's translated is fear Allah. Now the problem with fearing is that fear is a negative emotion which produces hatred, I mean, ask any child who doesn't like a teacher, who fears a teacher, whether they love the teacher. But so obviously they don't love the teacher, they hate the teacher. So we hate things which we fear. We have fear of dogs, fear of snakes, and so on and so forth, fear of heights, fear of water. All of these are things that whoever fears them actually dislikes that thing, actually hates that thing. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another place, in Surah Al-Baqarah, and this is the ayah 165, and Surah Al-Baqarah, the second Surah of the Quran, so 2:165. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. Allah said, but those who believe, they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than anything else. So now you've got two issues. One is fearing Allah, and the other one is loving Allah. These are two opposite things. You can't fear the thing you love, and you don't love the thing you fear. So how do you reconcile these two? It's very important for us to understand this, because that's exactly what Ramadan does. We reconcile these two by understanding that it is not fear of Allah that we talk about when we say ittaqullah, but it's a fear of displeasing Allah. Why? Because we love Allah more than we love anything else. So it is the fear of displeasing Him because we love Him the most. Therefore, there is no need for confusion between fear and love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Taqwa is to fear to displease the one we love the most. So therefore, the more we love somebody, the more we fear displeasing that person. The more we love Allah, when the more the love of Allah increases, the more the fear to displease Allah will also increase. Now, with regard to fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically told us, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. In Surah Al-Baqarah, again the second surah in the Quran, ayah number 83, Allah said, "O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, that you may become people of taqwa." That you may become people who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much that you always are conscious of Him in your lives and you fear to displease Him and disobey Him. Now obviously, we know that fasting is very much a part of every religion. Among the Catholics there is Lent, among Jewish people there are different kinds of fasting in the year, among the Hindus there's fasting. The nature of the fast is different with some people, with some religions, you can eat this and you can't eat that and so on. But the whole idea of fasting, the whole idea of abstinence from things which otherwise we use is nothing new. So Islam, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying very clearly that fasting has been prescribed on you. The way of our fasting is different, but the fasting itself is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may become muttaqun, that you may become people of taqwa. So therefore, fasting comes in order to increase this love of Allah and this desire never to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what is the reason for our fasting. Now, the whole issue of this love of Allah and the fear of displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the whole issue of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fearing to displease Him is based on the fact that this is the reason why we have been created. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us into this world, and He said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, the ayah of Surah Al-Zariyat, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we have created the human beings and the people, human beings and the jinn, only for one reason, and that is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship us. So therefore, this issue of fasting, we fast because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to fast. Now think about this. A person who in Ramadan for 29 days or 30 days, depending on the sighting of the moon, we are training ourselves and conditioning ourselves to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for no reason other than the fact that He ordered us to obey Him. And this is the essence of Islam. Islam is submission to the order of Allah. And therefore, for this whole month, we are training ourselves to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the training is done in a way where we are not only abstaining from what he prohibited, but we are also abstaining from what he permitted us to do in normal circumstances for one reason only, which is that he told us, do not do that from this time to this time. So now we have this issue of saying that if somebody says, why do you fast? Well, I fast because Allah said so. I fast because Allah said so. So when we develop, the whole point of fasting, therefore, is to develop this mindset, to develop this attitude in life, that I will obey Allah because He said so. And it doesn't mean that we don't try to understand the logic behind an idea, logic behind an order, and so on, but it also underlines the fact that there are things beyond which our logic doesn't go. There's a point beyond which our logic doesn't go. For example, in the salah, in the worship, if I ask you, why must you start standing up? Why can't you stand? Why can't you start with in the position of sujood, prostration with your head on the ground? Because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that a slave is closest to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala when he is in sajda, when he is in a state of prostration with his head on the ground. So if that is the place where we are closest to Allah, then why don't we start our prayer in that position? Why must we start our prayer in a position where we are furthest away from Allah? And then what is the ruku? Why must I go into ruku and then stand up again before I go into sujood? Now, there is obviously, these are not questions that anyone can logically answer. Why are you doing that? Because Allah said so. Now, this because Allah said so is the bottom line of Islam. It is the essence of Islam. It is the symbol of Islam. It is the icon of Islam. And that is why the sajda, for example, I consider this to be the icon of Islam, which is where a person places his face on the ground. He places his head on the ground, something which is absolutely, completely illogical, something which must never be done. The face and the head is the most honorable part of the body. To put that on the ground makes absolutely zero sense. And that is the reason why it is haram, it is prohibited to do that to anyone other than the one who created it. To the one who created it, there is no question of something having honor and so on, which is greater than the creator. That's the only reason why we do it in front of the creator. So there is a logic to it, but there's also the bottom line of it is, why do you do that? Because Allah said so. Now the issue of developing this attitude, and that's the purpose of fasting, inshallah, is that when we get out of Ramadan, then we carry this attitude with us throughout our lives. Whenever we are faced with a dilemma in life, whenever we are faced with a question in life, and remember the question in life outside of Ramadan would always be between haram and halal, between prohibited and permitted. So therefore, that should be easier. I mean, if you have left something which is permitted for this period between dawn and dusk in Ramadan, because Allah said so, then to leave it, to leave something which is prohibited anyway, should be easier. So therefore, when we come out of Ramadan, we walk with this attitude on the face of the earth. So whenever we are faced with any dilemma, it makes life so simple. We just go back and say, what did Allah say about this? What must I do? And we do what Allah told us to do. And how do we know what Allah told us to do? By looking at the Quran and by seeing the teachings, the explanations of the Quran, the teachings of the Quran according to the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved Prophet, who taught us the Quran, who explained the Quran, and who explained the Quran. So the Quran and the Sunnah are the two guides of the Muslim, and throughout that, the bottom line of that guidance, the fabric on which this guidance is embroidered, is taqwa. It is the desire, it is the earnestness, it is the sincerity, never to want to disobey, never to want to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we love Him more than we love anything else in this life. That's the whole reason for Ramadan, inshallah. Now, the last point that I want to mention, and I don't want to keep talking all the time, Dr. Listen to you there out there. The last point I want to say is that psychologists tell us, I myself am a social scientist in terms of my education qualifications, psychologists tell us that anything which is done for 21 days brings about habit change. So if you want to give up smoking, for example, leave it for 21 days, then you should be able to keep the habit and so on and so forth. So any habit change takes 21 days. In Ramadan, we have 29 or 30 days. So imagine Ramadan is an intensive habit change workshop where we are being given the opportunity to practice this new habit of obeying Allah, the new habit of saying, I'm doing this because Allah told me to do that. Not for 21 days, but for 29 or 30 days. Inshallah, when we come out of Ramadan, we want to come out with a permanent habit change. That habit change is to go from disobedience to obedience. The biggest benefit of all of this is that a person who is constantly aware of the presence of Allah in his heart, in his life, is the person of taqwa. A person who is constantly aware in all that he speaks and in all that he does, and all that she speaks and all that she does. Constant awareness, is Allah pleased with this or not? I will do it if Allah is pleased, and I will not do it if Allah is not pleased. A person who walks with that awareness, the biggest benefit that they will get right now, right here in this life, is a complete sense of peace of mind, a complete sense of confidence. How can you be afraid of anything when you know that Allah is walking with you? How can you be afraid of anything when you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there with you? He is interested in you. He is looking at you. He sees you. He hears you. He knows your problems before you are even aware of them. And He has a solution to solve them before you even think of a solution. And if Allah is the one that you are constantly aware of and you constantly are concerned about pleasing. Now, what is more beautiful than that? To live in this world, in this life, with an attitude of zero stress, of zero fear, of no apprehensions, of complete confidence, and walking in time to a tune, marching in time to a band, marching in time to a tune that only you can play in your mind, because you are connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ramadan comes to connect us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like the electrician cleans the end of the wire before he joins it to another wire. That's exactly what Ramadan comes to do. It comes to clean up all the rust and the dust and the oxidation and whatnot that has collected onto our hearts all through the year, and to make our hearts nice and shining and clean, to be connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this Ramadan not simply easy for you, because when we say easy, then we are looking at something which is otherwise difficult, but I hope it becomes easy. No, I don't pray that Ramadan becomes easy for you. I hope that Ramadan becomes absolutely gloriously, magnificently joyful for you. That you absolutely delight in it, that you love it, that you never want it to go away, that you want to be in a state of fasting all through your life. Not by not eating and not drinking and so on, but a state of fasting of everything which is prohibited, knowing that you are pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing that. Sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Peace and blessings be on Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, on the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, on his family and on his companions. That is all that I want to say at the moment. Happy to share, take any questions and so on that you might have. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for this reminder and for all the advice on that. Alhamdulillah. So inshallah we'll take the alhamdulillah, most of this webinar. Let's make it as a discussion, inshallah. And as you have, I guess, a lot of questions on the topic of Ramadan, because I saw that from the poll that you answered, almost half of you are fasting Ramadan for the very first time. So that's your time to ask all your questions, inshallah. And Yawar, inshallah, is available to help and advise, inshallah ta'ala. So let's open the discussion, inshallah, and let's take your question and build a conversation on what is really your issues and struggle and the questions that you may have, inshallah. So use your question box on the right hand side. Send all your question and inshallah Shah will take the question that you have on that topic, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. We have the first question, so inshallah Shah, I'll let you start with with answering the question, inshallah.
All right. Wonderful. This is a question from Sister Sakina. And he said, did I hear you correctly? How can you be in a state of fasting all our lives? And I did explain there, and I said I don't mean that by, I don't say that you don't eat and drink and so on. I mean fasting as in the sense of being conscious of the desire to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all your life. That is what I consider the state of fasting all your life. I hope that is clear, inshallah. There is another question from Nikki. I have children and none of my family know my choice to be Muslim. I want to read the Quran. May I only read the Quran if I'm covered? No, there's no the covering, meaning the covering of the head and so on. This relates only to your going out in public. It has nothing to do with reading Quran. You can read Quran without having your head covered, absolutely no problem. So inshallah, may Allah make that easy. Idris Aysan, if the lack of sleep and fasting is going to cause hardships at work, is it permissible to combine Maghrib and Isha and sleep early? This is something I would suggest and request that issues of fiqh, and this is one of them, issues of Islamic law, that you address them directly, and Brother Steve can take those questions and give you the answers referring to Muftiyin. The combining of the prayers is permitted with certain conditions, and therefore it is not something that you can do just to sleep early. But in the UK, I think right now you are living at a time when some people have permitted the combining of the prayers because of your daylight hours. So, inshallah, that is something that I asked Brother Steve to clarify for you. Abdullah Singh, Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh wa alaikum assalam. I work in the Navy and soon I will join by this 10th, inshallah. What do you suggest? Sometime in the middle it becomes hard during sailing. So if I break in the middle, is it a sin? What should I do? Now, the key thing here is, you see, if there is something which is compelling in the sense that you have no choice, then leaving something when there is no choice is permissible. But it is up to you to decide what that point would be. My suggestion is keep making dua, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make things easy. As far as physical difficulty is concerned, I mean, we do more than this for the sake of losing weight. We ask the cyclists from Tour de France what kind of hardship they go through because they want to not even win the race, but to complete the race. As the marathon runners, what kind of difficulties they go through. So this is the question of each one, how much you want to do, but just leaving it and getting lazy in the process, and of course you're the best person to decide. What would be lazy and what would be really trying to the best of your ability to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't get lazy, but try to do your best. Inshallah, if there is something where you really can't help it, and while you're sailing, and this is something which is compelling you, then may Allah make it easy for you. Inshallah, there is no problem with that. Surya Kiran Vanapalli, what is better to finish the Quran in Arabic or reading a few juz, but it's tafsir contemplation? Now, you really do both. You must read the whole Quran in Arabic, but at the same time, the Quran didn't just come to be read, it came to be understood, and therefore simultaneously start reading the translations, and the reflection is something we do all the time. So start from one and start from the beginning of the Quran and keep reading it in Arabic, and then start the translation also from the beginning. Maybe if you read, say, one section or one juz per day in Arabic, the translation you may not be able to complete the whole juz. So to complete that one juz, you may take 3, 4, 5 days, which is fine. So when you complete the Quran in Arabic, by then you would have completed part of the rest of it. There's no problem. It's not a race. You're not trying to do it in so many days. So take your time, and then you can finish. But very important for us to ensure that we understand the Quran and we follow it. Those of you who are interested, there is a series of lectures of mine on understanding the Quran. So you might like to see those lectures. They are on YouTube. You, go to our YouTube channel and then search for teaching. It's called Teaching Quran. So, but it refers also to some other issues with regard to that. So do take a look at that. There's Alia echoes. If you are finding fasting for 18 hours a day, can you break fast at the same time in Makkah? You mean if you're fasting for 18 hours a day is too long, can you break? No, you can't, because what happens in Makkah has nothing to do with any other part of the world. Islam is a universal religion. The fasting refers to the time of sunrise and sunset in your part of the world, wherever you live. I was looking at a very nice survey in terms of fasting, of how many hours a day do people fast. My friend Sheikh Yahya Ibrahim from Perth put it up on the net. Very interestingly, in Iceland, the fast is for 21 hours 57 minutes. That's like 22 hours. And in Sydney, Australia, it's 9 hours and 56 minutes. So that's about 10 hours. So one choice is, of course, we all move to Australia. It's a nice place to be in as well. I'm from Australia, so that's one choice. But since we can't all do that, therefore we have to follow the times of the day in our country. We can't follow Makkah. Just like, for example, I mean, if you say, well, why don't I pray Fajr at the time they're praying it in Makkah? But that would be pitch dark night in your country. So how would you pray Fajr? You couldn't pray Fajr. You can pray Fajr only when the time for Fajr comes in your country. Similarly, you can't fast at the same time as they are fasting in Makkah because of the number of hours or anything like that. Abu Bakr Basama, I've been told that if the hours of fasting are too long, that we can look at the hours of what they do in Saudi Arabia and implement them in your country. No, this is as I explained just now. You can't do that with fasting, just as you cannot do that with Salah, because as I said, you can't pray Isha when they are praying Isha. You can't pray Fajr when they are praying Fajr. So how can you open to break your fast, or how can you start your fasting when they are doing it? What happens in Makkah has nothing to do with any other part of the world. We fast when we see when it's time for fasting in our country, whichever country that we live in. Kerry Slater, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. I fasted for 3 years and only been Muslim 8 months. I'm learning Arabic for the Quran, but I'm still learning. I'm not sure if it's allowed to read the Arabic prayer. It is not allowed to read, as in read aloud, in any language other than Arabic during Salah. So whether it's Tarawih, whether it's the Fard Salah, any other Salah, it is not permitted to read the Quran in anything other than Arabic, because that is the language of the Quran, is Arabic, and therefore we read it only in Arabic. What you can do is finish your Salah in Arabic. You don't have to read the whole juz, read a few ayat, and then sit with the Quran and read English in order to understand that. Inshallah, this is also ibadah. It's also worship to read the Quran with the intention of understanding in any other language. That also is worship. So therefore, you don't have to read the whole thing in Arabic. Read a bit, finish your Tarawih, and then sit and read the translation. Sonia Chaudhary, am I able to pray the Zohar and Asr prayer once I'm home from work? I always have a busy schedule of work, but I know that not doing Salah and time is not good. Is it okay to combine the two? No, Sonia, it's not okay. The Salah has been prescribed at its time. It's not prescribed at our convenience. So it's very important for us. We must pray at the right time. You don't have to pray the whole Salah with all the Sunnah and so on and so forth, but just the Fard, we must pray at the right time. There is no escape from this. And why would you want to escape? Because see that this is the whole issue of how we approach Salah. If you want to look at, if you want to listen to some of my lectures on Salah, again, go to the YouTube channel. It's called www.youtube.com/M Yawar as one word. I will type it out here. So you go to the YouTube channel and see the lectures on Salah, and you will see our whole approach to Salah. It's something that we really need to look at and change how we look at Salah, because this is the problem. We see Salah as most of us, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying most of us, we see Salah as a burden, which has to be done. So therefore, I will do it. I really don't see any value in it. It's a pain in the neck. I still have to do it. So I'll do it. But why don't I combine everything else together? Just do it once, and why combine only Dhuhr and Asr? Why not pray all 5 at once? So it doesn't make sense. Why? Because our approach is wrong. Salah is a resource. Salah is help from Allah. Salah is connecting. You don't say, why don't I charge my phone, once in a day, even if it needs to be charged twice in a day. You charge when you need the charge. What is the best time to pray Salah? When you need the help of Allah the most. And you need the help of Allah the most when you are out, when you are working, when you need ideas, when you need things. That is when we need the help of Allah. So Salah must be approached as the greatest resource that I have. Why would I want to delay that? Why would I want not to use it? It's not a burden to be discharged. It's the greatest resource we have. So approach Salah with the right attitude, and of course Salah must be prayed at its right time, not at our convenience. Ariel Lanes, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I know we are supposed to perform 5 daily prayers. Now, first of all, we are not supposed to perform 5 daily prayers. We are supposed to establish 5 daily prayers. One of the problems of our translation is we say perform. It's not a performance. It's not an acting. It is to get into it. It is to establish it. It's to bring it into our lives. It is to be inspired by it. It's to use it as a resource. It's all of those things and more. So therefore, the attitude towards Salah itself. But what if the time for one comes and then we are not at home? I live in a small town and I'm the only one who follows Islam in this place. So it's not like I would be able to give a class or even work through it. Now, again, if you absolutely cannot, meaning that if you leave your class or if you leave your work, you're going to be arrested, thrown into jail or something like that, then you can leave it and you can come back home and pray. But think about this: every prophet, how many people were there who were following the religion of the prophet of the time when he came to that place? Nobody. Every prophet came and he was the only person in that place who was on Islam. You being the only person on Islam, you are performing the work of a prophet, which is to propagate Islam, without even opening your mouth once, without talking to anybody, without distributing a single pamphlet, without inviting anyone to Islam. Just your prayer is the biggest invitation to Islam. I know several people who became Muslim just because they saw their roommate, they saw their colleague praying regularly. So look at it from that perspective and say, how can my prayer become a source of invitation to Islam for other people? If you, depending on the weather, depending on where you live, in England at this time of the weather, at this time of the year, beautiful weather, just go out into the park and pray. Let people see. There's no problem. There's freedom of worship in the country. Nobody is going to arrest you. Just do what you would do in call it an emergency. If there was an emergency, what would you do that? Which is to pray at the right time. And that you will do not if you are performing, but if you are establishing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Aqimus Salah. He said, establish Salah. He did not say read Salah. He did not say Salah. He did not say do Salah. He did not say perform Salah. He didn't say make Salah. All of these are terms which we use in different parts of the world. I have yet to see people use the actual Quranic term, which is establish Salah. Aqimus Salah. To establish Salah. So therefore, bring that into your life and say that you want to establish Salah because this is the biggest benefit that you can have. This is the biggest resource you can have. And if you are a single person in that small town, believe me, every single person who comes to Islam in that town, you will get the credit for that. So make the trees and the grass and the rivers and the birds and the things and everything which watches you, make them witnesses that you have performed and you have established at its correct time in your town. Just go out and do it in your office. Just ask whoever it is and say, I would like to have some time to pray. I need about 5 minutes. Can I have 5 minutes to pray? I have yet to see any employer denying that to an employee in any country. I travel globally. I've lived in America. I've lived in South America. I've lived in UK. Many countries in the world. Australia. I've yet to see a person being denied the opportunity to worship if they ask for it. So even if you need a room, ask your boss. and say, can I have access to a room for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes to do my prayer, I am absolutely certain, inshallah, they will not object. And they will be interested, and they will say, well, what's this prayer? I've had people saying, most welcome, please pray, can we watch you praying? I said, sure, boss, please do that. I'm not saying they all rushed and became Muslim. They did not. But they stood there, they watched respectfully, and some of them had questions to ask me, and I answered those questions. Make your salah a means of da'wah, a means of inviting to Islam. Inshallah, may Allah make it easy for you. Sakina Hunt, I was told that although we have to pray the prayers during the fixed times, one prayer can be prayed, for example, as follows. Isha comes in at 11:18 and Fajr comes in at 08. I pray Isha at 2 and then Fajr at 6:30. Of course, you can pray the salah at any time from the time it comes in to the time the next salah comes in. So if that period is 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever, you can pray that salah within that time period at any time that is convenient for you. Absolutely no problem. There is a benefit of praying at the earliest time, but that's not you don't have to do that. With Isha, actually there is, Imam Abu Hanifa Rahmatullah said there is a benefit in actually delaying the Isha and praying it a little later. So whatever is convenient for you, as long as you are praying it within that time. Carol Adda Barkani, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Assalamu alaikum assalam. The fast is between sunrise and sunset. Why is the fast commencing nearly 2 hours before sunrise? Example, Fajr 5:27 a.m. and the fasting starts, sunrise is 4. The sunrise, the fasting is between, it's not sunrise to sunset, it is from the time of the sun comes at the time of Fajr. So it's this is a whole entire big discussion in itself. I don't want to get into that, but just very quickly, we fast from the time the Fajr Salah time sets in to the time the Maghrib Salah time sets in. So it's from so you can eat until the Fajr Salah time comes in, and you have to and you can break your fast once the Maghrib Salah time has come in. So that's the answer to that. Stephanie Martin. So in prayer, can we make dua in English? You can make dua in English. During the prayer, meaning not in your sujood and so on, by yourself you can make dua in any language of your choice. There is no problem with that. There are some ulama who have said that you have to make dua only in Arabic during the prayer, but you can make dua in any language after the prayer. So both of these opinions are there. Inshallah, there should be no problem. That's the side. We can send the details of YouTube. Yeah, sure. Please go ahead do that. I think you've done that already. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. The reward sister wants to know if she has to fast as she has not declared to her parents yet, and it may cause a problem. She is a college student at home for another 2 weeks. She's thinking promises not fasting. As I said, inshallah, especially for reverts and especially for revert sisters, because in many places they have a very hard time, and make it easy for them. If you fear for your safety, if you fear for yourself in that sense, then it is permissible for you to do that. But ask yourself, how much of that fear is real? If you go to college, how can you try to ensure that you still fast? But it's your call, inshallah. If there's no, I'm not the one to make it difficult for you. So ask the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you'll be surprised how the help of Allah will come. You'll be surprised how things will change, and you will be able to fast, inshallah. But if you feel fear for your safety and so forth, then you can make up the loss, inshallah. Sonia Chaudhary, what are the rules regarding Tarawih prayers? If one does not go to the mosque every night, is there something we can do also at home? First of all, for the women, there is no compulsion at all to go to the mosque for any salah, not only Tarawih, but even for the Fard salah. There is absolutely no compulsion whatsoever if you do not go to the mosque. So that's the first thing as far as women are concerned. For the men, it is compulsory to go to the mosque for the Fard salah. And that again, is that I'm saying compulsory, doesn't mean that if you can't go to the mosque, that you should not pray, or that if you pray in your home or your office where your salah is not valid, none of that. But the compulsory, as in highly recommended thing to do is for the men to pray all the 5 salat in the masjid with Jama'at. Now, when you can't do 5, you do as much as you can, inshallah. So there is. Now, Tarawih is a sunnah and Tarawih is a nafil. It is something which is not obligatory. It is something which is supererogatory. It is something which is highly beneficial, highly recommended, but it is not obligatory. So if you do not go for Tarawih at all to the mosque also, there is no sin on you. If you go, it's a benefit. If you go, it's something wonderful to go and listen to the Quran. But if you cannot go or do not go at all, it is still not a sin. So try to go as much as you can. If you can't go, there is no problem. And as I said, for the women, this is a rukhsa, it's a convenience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need not go to the mosque for any salah at all. But you cannot miss your salah and so that you pray your salah at the right time. And if you pray it in your home, it is recommended for you, that is very good. If you go to the mosque, alhamdulillah, it is permissible, there is no problem. But you don't have to actually go for that. My sound is becoming low again as I'm getting older. Stephanie, I'm breastfeeding a 3-month baby. Alhamdulillah, I find it very hard to not drink water as it makes me very thirsty. Do I have to fast or do I just drink water, not eat food? No, just drinking water, not eating food is not fasting. So either you fast or you don't fast. And if you are breastfeeding a child, if you are pregnant, and in all such conditions, there is permissibility for the sisters not to fast, and so you can inshallah eat and drink, and then once the baby is older, and then you can fast, so try to do that. If you can manage it, you manage it. But if you can't manage it, and if it's, as I said, it's up to you to decide how thirsty is thirsty, and then take. And I told you, think of Tour de France, think of the marathoners. And I know you're going to say, well, they have a bottle of water on the handlebar of the cycle. I agree, but I don't mean that situation to drink that water. So, breastfeeding a child, or especially in pregnancy. So you have the option not to fast if you find it too difficult, inshallah. How can I maintain focus in salah? For example, sometimes while I'm praying, other thoughts will come to me, or a sound or something that distracts me from my salah. How can I, or what can I do to focus? I don't like to lose the soul, and wish not to have to make the salah over again when those thoughts or sounds happen. SubhanAllah, I'm very surprised you actually have this problem, and you must be the only person in the world who has this problem. SubhanAllah, join the club. Every single one of us has that problem. I don't think there's a single Muslim alive on the face of the earth that doesn't have this problem. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us all to increase khushu in our salah. May Allah bless you. You're talking about repeating your salah when your khushu breaks. SubhanAllah, it's something which is so beautiful. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased just with your intention to do that. There is no need to do that incidentally, just for the hukum. There's no need to repeat your salah if you find you do it. But it is one of the practices that is prescribed for people to increase their khushu. That if you lose your khushu, if you lose your concentration, and khushu means concentration, if you lose your concentration in the middle of salah, then you complete that salah and then you repeat that salah. This is one of the exercises, the mashq which is given and which we try to do in order to improve the concentration of salah. Now, how to have concentration? Once again, listen to the lecture on salah, which has this in very detail. But very quickly, thumbnail sketch. First and foremost, focus on what happens outside salah. Focus on your tahara. Focus on your wudu. Ensure that you are pure. Ensure that you make proper wudu. Second thing is always try to be in a state of zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By zikr, I don't mean walking around with a tasbih. I mean consciously being aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 24/7 in your life. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sending salat and salam on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reading Quran, reciting some surah. As you are walking, driving, doing your work, whatever, you can do this silently, you can do this softly, no problem. But constantly be in a state of awareness of Allah outside the salah. Then when you come and stand in salah and say Allahu Akbar, focus on the meaning of what you are saying. Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest. Allah, I am standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can any man and anything take away? Rasulullah said that when a person loses khushu and his concentration goes in salah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls out to the person and says to him, "Oh my slave, who is there that is better than me? Oh my slave, who is there that is more important than I am? Oh my slave, who is there that you need and who can fulfill your needs?" Now think about that. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to us. So think about this and say that I'm standing before Allah, and if I lose my concentration, I'm now thinking of something else. That something else that I'm thinking of is not better than Allah. So why am I thinking of that? Bring your concentration back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the famous hadith Jibreel, when he was asked about Ihsan, what did he say? He said, "An ta'bud Allah ka'annaka tarahu." He said to worship Allah as if you can see Him. So when you stand in salah, imagine that you can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet said, وَإِلَّمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. He said, if you cannot see Allah, know that Allah sees you. So think about that. When you are standing in salah, say, I'm standing before Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at me. I'm in His presence. Bring that concentration and think about that. And last and very importantly, know the meaning of what you are reciting. Know the meaning of what the Imam is reciting. So learn Arabic, learn the Quran, and to the extent possible, so that at least when you are reciting, you recite surahs that you understand the meaning of, concentrate on that meaning as well. Inshallah, if you do all this, the khushu will remain. As I said again, may Allah first and foremost reward you for your niyyah, for your desire to please Him, for your desire to have khushu. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open your heart to Him and His Lord. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you khushu in your salah in such a way that He is pleased with what you are doing. Right. How do we move away from old habits like TV, etc., to more beneficial things in this month? First and foremost, the idea is to move away from old habits for the rest of your life, not for this month. How do you move away from the old habits? Pick up your TV remote. There is a button usually on the top right corner, which is red, which is called the on and off button. Press it once, and that's it. Your TV is off. And if that doesn't work, go to the back where it's plugged into the wall and switch it off. It is very simple, Seth. If one wants to do that, it's not difficult at all. Jazakallah khairan. Next question. Buckley, I just converted in September. Little nervous. I fasted before, not for 30 days. I was getting a headache today. You have to fast only one day at a time. I hope you weren't trying to fast for 30 days all at once. If you're fasting for one day at a time, absolutely no problem. Headaches, yes, sometimes you get a headache. What happens now? I'm not here giving medical advice, so this is not meant as medical advice. But sometimes prophylactic headache medicines, when you start your fasting, so you're taking a Tylenol, one tablet or something, or a Crocet, or some paracetamol or something. Before you, at the time of suhoor, when you start your fast, usually this is quite beneficial. Sometimes the headache comes also because you might be used to your tea or your coffee, and the caffeine deprivation does that. So make sure you have a cup of coffee in the morning, and then when you break your fast, make sure you have a cup of coffee, and then concentrate on the fast and concentrate on making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're getting a headache, ask Allah. The headache comes to remind you to ask Allah. So ask Allah, Ya Allah, make my headache go away. As simple as that, right? So try to do that, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for you. Sonia Chaudhary, how are Tarawih prayers established? Do we pray Isha first or after? What other salah should we offer as part of that? Tarawih is the nafil which is after Isha. So you pray your Isha, with Isha first. After that you pray your 2 rakat of Sunnah of Isha, and then you pray Tarawih 2 rakat at a time. As many as you want. You can pray, up to 20. You can, and among the Malikis, they pray 36. So as many as you want, inshallah. And then you pray, you finish off with witr after the Tarawih. So that is the way of Tarawih. If you go to the mosque, then you just follow whatever it is that they are doing in the mosque that you go to. Nadia, do we say dua of breaking fast before having the date and water, or after? Before that, inshallah. And there is several du'as which are, alhamdulillah, which are available. So just look up Ashir Google, the best form takes all these information, and just say the dua. Fast can be broken, you said, before having the date and water. Date and water is not compulsory for fast to break the fast. You can break the fast with anything that is edible that you can eat or drink. Date and water is sunnah, inshallah, but you can also break your fast with anything else Aril Lanes. Thanks for answering, but I'm sorry, I haven't told my friends and family about my conversion yet, just my online friends. Long story, so it is kind of complicated my current situation. Anyway, I'll try to find a way. Just one more thing, is it really true that we can't hang out with disbelievers? Allah Kareem. If somebody didn't hang out with you, you wouldn't be a believer, believe me. You not only can you hang out with disbelievers, you should hang out with disbelievers. You know, I really don't like this term, hang out. It makes you sound like a piece of laundry. But I suggest that the whole point is this whole issue of believers and disbelievers. There's no disbelievers, first of all. There are people who believe different things, right? So, alhamdulillah, the Muslim is the one who is the greatest, the dearest, the loveliest friend of every other person on the face of the earth. A Muslim is the dearest friend of the Christian, the dearest friend of the Jew, the dearest friend of the atheist, the dearest friend of the Hindu, the Buddhist, whoever, right? That's the only way that you're going to present Islam to them. You're not going to present Islam by sitting in a cocoon somewhere and then shunning all of them, and then believing that you are superior and they are inferior. I'm not saying you are doing all of this. I'm just putting it like, but I'm saying seriously, this whole issue of feeling superior about being a believer is absolute nonsense. The Prophet ﷺ, who do you think he hung out with? The messenger, who did he hang out with? He hung out with all the disbelievers. And he hung out with some big time disbelievers, believe me. I mean, and that's how those people became believers. So of course it's to that. As far as your other things like difficulties and so on is concerned, inshallah, we will all make dua for you. I will make dua for you. And I'm requesting everybody who's listening to this one, make dua for Aril Lanes, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may make these things easy for you and make you a means of guidance for all those who come into contact with you, whether they look at you, whether they talk to you, whether they're in your company, that you become a source of guidance for them. By all means, most welcome. Please hang out with the disbelievers, be nice to them, be good with them. Obviously, you will not do what they do. I mean, obviously, if you are, you will not have a drink with them or whatever, but by all means, there's absolutely no problem. You should hang out with them because that's the only way that you're going to be presenting Islam to them. Sheikh, can you speak a little more slowly as the audio is low? Whoa, absolutely, I shall speak slowly. People are asking for you to repeat that point. Which point? Tell me which point. I will repeat it, inshallah. Submit your Ramadan question, not over. That's not for me. What are the rules for wearing makeup when performing wudu and establishing salah? Wow. That is a very complicated thing. How are you going to be wearing wudu, wearing makeup, and performing wudu and establishing salah all at the same time? I would like to see that. Wudu, condition of wudu, that the water must touch your body. So therefore, if there is makeup that is like a coat of paint, for example, nail polish, which is a coat of paint on your nail, and so the water does not touch your actual nail, that invalidates your wudu. So something like nail polish is something which invalidates the wudu. But mainly any stain on the nail, that is not the same. You can do that, and you can also, your wudu will be valid. Rest of the makeup will wash off when you make wudu. I don't know makeup that doesn't wash off. So by all means, make wudu, and then you can do your salah, then you can apply your makeup, which will be good for good until your next wudu. But because you have makeup, and if you need to make wudu, don't let that stop you from making wudu because the makeup will wash off. Obviously, I'm sure you won't do that, but I'm just saying that. Sakina Hunt, my daughter has many health issues that prevent her from fasting. She has medications she has to take throughout the day, and also had just a baby as well, and has other health issues. And since that she cannot fast, what can she do? She knows she has to make up the day she misses, but the problem is she will miss so many, if not the whole month. Is there something else she can do since her health does not permit her to fast? Other health issues. Okay, two issues here. First of all, if the health issues are related to the pregnancy or to a current situation and they are going to go away, if these are not permanent health problems, then there is no problem. She can make up those fasts, even if it's the whole month, it doesn't matter. She can make it up during the other 11 months of the year. She doesn't have to fast continuously for 30 days. She can make up 2-3 days at a time, and she can do that even if she's fasting for 3 days in a month. In the other 12 months, she would have fasted for 36 days, and therefore she would have made it up. So there's no problem with that. If there are health issues which are permanent in nature, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure her completely and relieve her from all her difficulties and health issues. But for example, people who are highly diabetic, who simply cannot fast whatsoever, and it's a permanent condition, mashallah, such people are permitted to not to fast, but to give the cost of suhoor and iftar, to give the cost of 2 meals to another person who is fasting. So this can be done, and this will be the instead of a fasting. But if it's a condition, as I said, which is temporary, like pregnancy and so on and so forth, then if the person must make up the fast. They can't give money to other people for fasting. So this is to prevent for people from just giving money for fasting and not actually fasting themselves. I think that is the last question that I have on my panel. Brother Steve, is that right?
Yes, there's a last question that I can see on your panel as well so far. There's more coming. There's more coming, inshallah. If you have any other questions, inshallah, if you can please mention them now so that we can address them. We only have a short time left, so if you can please ask your remaining questions. So there's some more coming, inshallah. I'll mute myself, inshallah.
Yeah, you mentioned about how we should be friends with disbelievers. I have quite a few friends who are disbelievers. When I'm fasting and my disbeliever friends are having a drink, is it bad for you? What anyone else does is not bad for your fast, is not bad for your anything. So let's understand this very clearly. Let them eat, let them drink, no problem. My experience, and I live in India, as I told you, 90% or more of my friends are not are people who are not believers. I have Hindu friends, I have Christian friends, I have Jewish friends, but not in India. I have yet to see one of them deliberately eating or drinking in front of me when I'm fasting. Every single one of them, if I'm fasting during Ramadan, they will not eat and drink in front of me. I have to tell them, no, go ahead, please have your lunch. They say, no, go sit somewhere else. No, we don't want to eat. I think this is it's human nature. People are just generally nice people. So I think it's very important for us. But if they're eating and drinking, absolutely no problem. Just sit there and Now, when you say having a drink, if you're referring to alcoholic drinks, then this is nothing to do with fasting. Rasulullah prohibited us from being in the presence of or being in the company of people who are having alcoholic drinks. So therefore, hanging out with your disbelieving friends is fine, but hanging out in a pub is not fine. Hanging out in a bar is not fine. So it's a question of where you are hanging out. And if you are with them and they are having alcoholic drinks, then it's not good for you. Very politely tell them, why don't you finish your drink and then I will join you again. And so where are you going? Well, I'm not permitted to sit here while you are drinking alcohol. So no problem. You do what you're doing, and I'll come back and join you. Just say that. So there's no problem. Al-Washa. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Jazakumullah khair wa iyyakum. Can you just tell me how do I manage to establish the habit? How many rak'at do I need to offer? And what is the third part of the night? What does the third part of the night do? What does the third part of the night to do tahajjud? What is it? Okay. How do you establish tahajjud? By setting an alarm and getting up when the alarm rings. How many rakat do I need to do? You can do 2, or you can do 4, or 6, or 8. Rasulullah used to do 8. So you can do as many as you want. You can even do more than 8, but 2 at a time. You can't do 1 rakat. You can do 2 at a time. You can do 2, or you can do more as you wish. Tahajjud is a nafil prayer. The importance of tahajjud, once again, there's a lecture of mine, so do that one. Third part of the night refers to about a time which is about 1 or 2 hours before the time of Fajr comes in. So say for example that if the time for Fajr comes in at 4, then the time of Tahajjud will be from 2 a.m. onwards. Tahajjud can technically be prayed at any time after you have finished praying Isha. So right then you can pray Tahajjud. Even immediately after praying Isha, you can make the niyyah of Tahajjud and pray. But the best time to pray is the last third of the night. So if supposing you take the night and divide it into 3 parts, the last third of that third part would be the last third part of the night, and that's the best time. Because of the hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to the first heaven in a manner that reflects His majesty and grace, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has it announced and says, who is there who needs my help? Who is there who needs anything from me? And of course Allah knows all of this. This is to establish proof in your and my favor to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked me and I answered. And that's the benefit of the third part of the night. But you can establish tahajjud at any time, and how much to pray, up to you, as much as you want, but at least 2 rakat, but you can do more. Mr. Buckley, as a new convert, I'm not sure if Sheikh Yawar answered this already as I arrived late, but what is Allah's reason for us fasting? Oh, I answered, and that was a lecture. Is it to help us to be rid of bad habits? Become pure again, clean the body, all of those and more. It is to establish the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our hearts. I hope that the talk at the beginning of this was recorded, and if it was recorded, then I request Brother Steve to send it to you. If it was not recorded, then go to my website, to the YouTube channel that we have, and look for the talk on Ramadan and on fasting. Because what I said in the talk today, I have also said this before. Do take a look at that, inshallah. Abdullah Singh, Chef, in ship every Saturday is party, and on our food table they place alcohol and subject during our lunch time. What we do? You know, Abdullah, the thing I say is that as far as the party is concerned, it's not compulsory. So if they place alcohol, well, you don't drink it. If you can leave the place, I mean, don't make a big scene out of it. But if you can go away. If you can, but every Saturday obviously you can't miss the party. So inshallah, try to do the best. Make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make dua, Allah will make it easy for you. But try not to stay at the table if there is alcohol there. Tell people, right? Tell them, look, I can't sit here if there is alcohol. So what do I do? You know, and it's you know, this is the issue. This world we live in is a strange world. We are against drugs, and we should be against drugs, but we refuse to accept the fact that alcohol is a drug. So this is the whole issue. You know, the whole problem is that we live in a world which is a sham. So try to explain to people and say, look, alcohol is a drug. Ask people that. Do you like drugs? No. Then why are you drinking alcohol? That's a drug. So you know, many ways of dealing with it. My suggestion is all of these things. One big rule, which is have a big smile on your face, be nice, be polite, don't fight with people, don't argue with people. Inshallah, you will find that people's hearts will change. Inshallah. Sakina, can you pray tahajjud without taking sleep? Yes, of course. You can pray tahajjud with after sleeping. You can wake up and pray. You can pray without that. Prayer time from Isha to Fajr is so short. It's better for me to stay awake after Fajr. Absolutely, no problem at all. Or like I said, move to Australia. Abu Bakr Basama, Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. My wife waited over a year ago now. Sometimes when she visits her family, they're drinking alcohol. She's never tempted, but is unsure how to approach the situation. Should she leave the house even if she's at risk of success? You know, may Allah make it easy for her. There's no need to, or you should not do something which the effect of that is worse than the problem itself. So if she breaks her connection with the family, then it's not something that is recommended. I mean, the Nabi was married to the daughter of Abu Sufyan, Habiba radiallahu anha. He recommended to her that she should be good to her father, she should be good to her parents. Habiba, her mother and her father were not Muslim. Wallah alam, whether they used to drink alcohol or not. Those people drink a lot of alcohol. Rasulullah didn't tell her don't go to the house. So you can go to the house, you can, or your wife can go to the house. If they are drinking, try to say, you know, if she goes there, if she is dressed like a Muslim, if she's praying and so on, you find that people become considerate, and inshallah, they will not drink in her presence. Inshallah, they will avoid alcohol. Let us talk about it. Let us tell people that alcohol is a drug. Why do we put drugs into our hearts, into our bodies? Why do we put chemicals into our bodies? People today make such a big song and dance about gluten, which is wheat. They make such a big song and dance about milk and milk products, but they don't make any song and dance about putting alcohol into your body. As I said, we live in a strange world. No problem with putting alcohol into our body. No problem with tobacco and filling our lungs with carbon. I mean, so it's important. We should talk to people, talk in language that they understand. Where we're not talking religion, we're talking science. We're saying here is a situation where you're doing something which is scientifically completely logical, and you call yourself educated. What kind of stuff is that? So be very clear with them. Talk to them, inshallah, and gradually things will change. But don't upset people. Have a big smile on your face. If they are drinking alcohol, just with a big smile say, all right, once you guys finish your drink, call me. I'm in the other room. Right? That will change people's minds. She's not walking out of the house. She's in the other room. She says, I'm going to sit in the other room. You finish your drink, then you call me, then I will come. So do that. Can I ask, how does Ramadan is a me from Allah to preparing us for leadership? Also feel free to mention about it. Ramadan is the whole issue of leadership is an issue of discipline. There is no leader who is indisciplined. And one of the basic foundational principles that Ramadan comes to teach us is discipline. How can I discipline myself? By ensuring that I do all the right things, which are things that please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can I train myself in such a way that I never displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is the whole point of Ramadan. And therefore Ramadan is something which is very, very important for anyone who wants to develop himself or herself as a leader. Alhamdulillah, we are having a course called the Leadership Excellence course in England, in Surrey, inshallah, which will be from the it will be in August, from the 13th to the 17th of August. It's a 5-day residential intensive leadership training course, which starts with Tahajjud and which ends with Isha. It's a very invigorating but tough environment. It's very, very nice. This course, myself, I teach the course, and we have one other person, most probably it will be Sheikh Mohammed Chip, who will come this time, who teaches the course. Alhamdulillah, we teach this course free of cost, like we do all our Islamic stuff. So the students will pay only for the logistics. Brother Steve has the details for that course, and go for the course. Those who would like to attend that course, it's a course which is based on my book, which is called The Leadership Lessons from the Life of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Leadership Lessons from the Life of the Messenger of Allah. This book is available on Amazon, on Kindle, on so forth. To do take the time to also read that book. Based on that book, I wrote the book for that course, and inshallah, this will also be very beneficial for that course. How long before Fajr Adhan called so that we must finish Zuhur and pray Sunnah? If you are in a country where we don't hear Adhan, but we have a calendar, how can we be sure that Fajr is now a time if you only have the calendar? Don't know how to see that. You don't have to see the thread of dawn and so on. You can follow your calendar. Whatever time the Fajr time comes in on the calendar, you must stop eating before that time. Don't go by the Adhan, because the Adhan is not always called at the time of Fajr. Many times Adhan in many countries is called at a time which is after the time of Fajr has come in, because that happens to be more convenient for people, local people. This is permissible, there's nothing wrong with that, but that is not the time for Fajr. So sometimes if you go, if you are in a country where the Adhan is not called at the exact time the Fajr comes in, and you find that you have been eating until that time, that means your fast, your fast finished even before it started, because you broke the you broke the fast even before you started it. So don't go by that. That doesn't. That's not the right thing to do. Go by the time that the time of Fajr comes in, and your calendar is good enough. We have several apps on Android and iPhone and so on, which tell you the right time for Fajr in your country, in your city. Go by that and stop eating before that time starts. Just a few minutes before. You don't have to stop eating 10, 20, 15 minutes before. Just a few minutes before that time starts, you must stop eating, inshallah, and don't wait or go by the adhan. I'm putting here the link to register for those of you who are interested. You can go to that link and for the ADC brother. The issue of first of all, and I'm answering this question of the issue of flatulence. See, first of all, medically, take some advice. I'm sure you must have, but that's the obvious answer to that. Medical advice. Inshallah, there are cures for that. For these things, it's not such a big problem. It's not incurable or anything like that. Secondly, it does not affect your. It doesn't affect your fasting. And if you have to, leave salah, and I know this is difficult to do, but inshallah, may Allah make this easy for you. But that definitely doesn't affect your fasting in any way. Okay, the LEC details have been shared with you. Wilma, is it okay to neglect houseworking during Ramadan because of reading and praying more? I mean, these kinds of questions, we want to get into trouble. What is the meaning of neglect housework? It depends on that, right? So do whatever is convenient for you. Obviously, you must give precedence to praying and reading and so on. But the question of how much are you reading and how much are you praying, and therefore how much of housework are you neglecting, and what are the consequences of housework? So all of that you have to bear in mind and balance it. Inshallah, make that easy for you. Jazakallah, I saw that. All right. The flatulence question, as I said, first of all, take medical advice. I'm sure you must be doing that already, but do take it. It's not an incurable thing. It is curable. Inshallah, it will be fine. Second thing is that it definitely breaks your wudu, but it doesn't do anything to your fasting. So the fasting shouldn't be affected whatsoever. As far as wudu is concerned, yes, it does break wudu. Is that the last of the questions? Steve, I don't see anything else.
Yes, yeah, that's the last question that arrived, and inshallah we'll take it as the last question for today, inshallah, because we already reached the time. It's nearly 12:30. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for all your advice and all your wisdom around this topic. And as well, alhamdulillah, you've answered a lot of questions, mashallah, and that's been really beneficial for all of us, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair again for your time and your advice and your precious advice on that. I hope, inshallah, that clarifies a lot of the points for everyone, because I know that there's a lot of questions on that topic. Sometimes some of you are unfamiliar with Ramadan and fasting for the first time. So there were some points that were very important to clarify. I'll just come back on one of the points that you mentioned. For example, when we first fast, we can have the misunderstanding sometimes that fasting is from sunrise to sunset. And you clarified that earlier. It's not from sunrise to sunset, but it's from the time when the Fajr prayer starts in the morning that you start fasting until the sunset, which is the time for the Maghrib prayer. So alhamdulillah for clarifying that. And for everyone who has questions, I would say that are kind of local questions. Shir is not in the UK, for example, so you won't be able to address some of the specific UK questions that you may be facing. But if you have any specific question regarding the UK, you can send them to us, info@muslimnow.com, and we'll try to find any local scholar or advice that can answer that question. And I would say for most of it, I would say you have your local. You make sure that Ramadan is a time that you should be taking the opportunity to visit the mosque and spend some time at the mosque. And we mentioned about the Tarawih prayer. So when you go at your local mosques, take the time to take prayer timetables, which would give you the exact time for the fasting, and take the opportunity as well to ask questions as well to your local imam and your local community leaders as well, because they're here to help, and it's really. I would say Ramadan is a time as well to experience brotherhood and to experience getting closer to your community as well. So make sure that you don't spend this month just yourself in isolation, but that you take the initiative and step forwards to meet other Muslims and to meet your local community as well. So definitely, I would say that take that step as well, inshallah. And hopefully, if you have any remaining questions, you can send them to us as well, inshallah. There have been a few references that have been mentioned today. Yawar mentioned about the YouTube channel, about videos about the prayer, about videos about the Quran. So we'll forward all of that to you, inshallah, and we'll even try to post them on the Facebook page as well, so that everyone can benefit from those lectures, inshallah. And as well, just a final announcement before we end as well. During the months of Ramadan, just like I said at the very beginning, we'll have more activities as well that will be coming this month. We'll have more regular webinars as well to continue to discuss the conversation around Ramadan and take more of your questions, because we know that you have more questions that are going to be coming. So we'll have on a weekly basis, we have a webinar called Ramadan Airlines, where we welcome you on board for this Ramadan, and we'll discuss how to take the best, how to keep on improving week after week, and how to push yourself to take more and more advantage of the months of Ramadan. So we'll start with the basics, but then we will just explore ideas of, okay, what can I do to take more advantage of this month? What are when you are entering the second 10 days and the last 10 days, what are the specific actions that you can do in more details to take advantage of this month? So we'll discuss that in more details as well, inshallah. And the IAR speakers will be joining us on that. Brother Abdurrahim Green, Brother Hamzat Sources, Brother Salim Chakte will be joining us on this webinar as well. And just like I said as well, usually stay tuned, because there will be more announcement coming about the activities that Muslim Now will be doing during Ramadan. So please stay tuned, because inshallah ta'ala we'll be preparing more activities, inshallah, to come. With that, again, I would like to thank Yawar. Thank you very much, Sir. Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward you in the best way for the precious advice that you gave us. Sometimes it can seem like some questions, I would say, we all start with the starting point where we first fast the months of Ramadan. And when we first fast the months of Ramadan, we have loads of questions that might seem small questions, but that the answers to them make our life and our experience of Ramadan much more easier and much more comfortable. So really, Jazakallah khair to you, share on the behalf of everyone, for all the questions that you've answered today. On that, inshallah. I'll just reopen the mic if you add something, a last word to add, and after that, inshallah, I'll close the webinar for today, inshallah.
Right. Jazakumullah khairan. First of all, Jazakumullah khairan for the opportunity to do this session. It's, I think, very beneficial for all of us to spend this time in the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in trying to understand how can we worship Him in the best possible way, how can we please Him in the best possible way, and I hope that we are able to do that, inshallah. So it's a great opportunity as far as I'm concerned. Jazakumullah khairan to you for giving me this opportunity. Inshallah, I hope to see some of these people who are on this webinar, inshallah, sometime when I'm in England next. And all the very best to you. Special request from me to all of you to make dua for the Standard Bearers Academy, for the establishment of the Standard Bearers Academy, inshallah, which is what we are trying to establish. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us, and we ask you to make dua for that, especially during Ramadan. I would like to end with dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this Ramadan the best Ramadan yet in our lives for all of us, inshallah, that Allah opens the doors of His rahmah, which He is promised to do, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the doors in our hearts for His nur, for His light, for guidance to fill our hearts and to fill our lives, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us to make the changes that we bring about in our lives in Ramadan permanent, changes in our behavior, changes in our habits, to make them permanent in our lives, so that every Ramadan we improve as human beings, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enables us to share this benefit with all those people who live in our communities. Extremely important constantly to also focus on the people who are not yet Muslim in our communities, invite them home, invite them for iftar, invite them to break fast with you, invite them into the masajid, let them come and see our salah, let them come and listen to the recitation of the Quran, even if they don't understand it. Let us be people who, because of our festivals and our Ramadan, ensure that we are a source of goodness for everyone around us, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair, alhamdulillah. Just a word to conclude, Jazakallah khair again for your time, and there was a lot of precious advice in this webinar. And for me, the most important point that I really take is that Ramadan is a training time. It's a training time for us to build new habits in our life, and in particular the habits of being constantly aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trying to live a life which is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So having this consciousness to always live a life that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Him, inshallah, to allow us to achieve that result, inshallah, during this month of Ramadan, and to make it an ongoing and everlasting habits of us, that we are constantly aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trying to live and to live a life which is pleasing to Him, inshallah. So we ask Him to make that a reality in our life, and to make us from among the successful in this life and in the next, inshallah ta'ala. With that, inshallah, we'll conclude. So inshallah, of course, as well, post your comments, your thoughts, your gems and the things that you've learned and your experience about this webinar on our Facebook page. And inshallah, stay tuned for more activities that will be coming, inshallah. With that, I thank you I thank all of you for your time on this webinar, and I wish you all the best for this month of Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. جزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.